Welcome to Group Talk, 4 shows, 1 podcast from the Small Group Network focusing on topics relevant to small group ministries. Whether you're in a church of 100 or 10,000, whether you're a volunteer or staff, we want to support, encourage, and equip you to lead well. So relax, listen, and enjoy Group Talk United.
Hello to all of you small group point people out there in the trenches of small group ministry, and thank you so much for tuning in to listen to this special edition of Group Talk United. I hope you had a very Merry Christmas, and it's Derek here as always, along with your 4 Group Talk hosts. We've got Steve Gladen of Inside Saddleback.
2020 is almost over. Hang in there.
We've got Carolyn Takeda of Here to There.
Thank God it's almost over. Happy New Year, everyone.
Bill Search of The Leadership Journey.
So good to be with you.
Nick Lindsay of The Reading Lens.
Hey, everybody.
And sadly, our producer, Jason Banzoff, is not able to be with us. He's moving and baby's on the way, but listen to the end of the show to your special message just from Jason for you. So reminder, guys, we are, as we record this all over the country, we're not like in one posh studio. We're spread out all over the fruited plain from sea to shining sea. We've got Nick over there in New Jersey. We've got Bill in the wonderful state of Oklahoma. And then Steve, Carolyn, and myself are here in sunny Southern California. What is it, about 60 degrees?
Yeah, in our posh studio, it's a very comfortable, 70 degrees.
Our home office is a posh studio now.
Yes.
That's funny because the state motto of Oklahoma is "There's nothing posher." So, actually, that's not true. The state motto of Oklahoma is "You can't tell me what to do." It's endearing. It's sweet.
So well.
Before we jump into the meat of the show, I just wanted to take a minute and just, catch your guys' excitement for Virtual Lobby Gathering 2021. Now, if you're listening and you don't know what the lobby is, it is one of our biggest training events. We do it every year, usually in SoCal, but due to COVID restrictions this year, the Lobby Gathering is going to be a live virtual event on February 23rd and 24th. It's going to be a live event from 9 a.m. to noon each day, Pacific Standard Time. And we've got an incredible lineup of sessions. Each morning is going to start off with a general session, followed by like 10 breakout sessions per hour. And so check out the lineup we have on Tuesday for our main opening panel session. It's going to be Recruiting and Training Leaders with Steve Gladen, Bill Willits of North Point, and Jared Kirkwood of Mariners. And then on Wednesday, our opening coaching panel is going to be on, coaching, How to Care for Your Leaders with Steve, with Bill Willits again, and Dave Enns of North Coast. So guys, I just want to hear from you. How excited are you about Virtual Lobby 2021?
Very excited. I think one thing especially I'm excited for is the Small Group Network is not just a United States organization. It is global, international, everything. And I know there's so many who can't fly in. So the opportunity for this to be virtual and allow everyone to be there is really exciting for them to get to be a part of the conversations that take place at the lobby.
Yeah, I'm going to.
I'll go. I was going to say I totally agree with that. I think that normally the lobby is inhibited by our space, how much space we have to gather together, and now this is unlimited. I mean, doesn't matter where you live. We could have thousands of people at the lobby this year, where normally that'd be a little tight at San Juan Capistrano.
Yeah, originally I was a little bit mad at the Republic of California for shutting us down, but excited for those things. I was on a cohort with the European aligned cohort, and so many of them are jumping on the lobby because in Europe it's the perfect evening time from what we're doing in the morning. So they're excited to jump on. So yeah. There's a silver lining in everything.
Yeah, and I think we've been doing online conferencing probably for the last 9 months with different areas. But what's so cool about the lobby is that we really try to preserve the relational core that is the beauty and the blessing of the lobby. So I think we've designed it so you will have breakout times. You will be able to interact and make some new peer friends that are going to help encourage you. And you get to also be an encourager as well. So try to keep the best DNA pieces of that relational community and to have that encouragement while still providing world-class content to help us in the ministry going forward. So I'm super excited about making new friends and getting to see my old ones.
It's going to be amazing. For the usual lobby we have at a physical event, we can only hold about 100 people.
Mhm.
Guess how many people we already have registered for virtual lobby? Over 125.
Wow.
So pretty cool.
Hmm.
So we're really going to
Good
see this
start.
thing get big. And go to smallgroupnetwork.com/events. Look for the virtual lobby tab. Click on that, and you can lock in a price as low as $39. And in fact, we're even going to roll out some flash sales coming up again. So be
Oh,
looking for those.
My team just signed up for that $39 thing. Goodness.
Too
Should
late
we get a
now.
heads up, Derek?
Sorry. Yeah,
Not get a heads
snooze,
up
you lose.
about these things.
Well, that's the way it goes. It's to a good
Snooze,
cause,
you lose.
Carolyn. Don't be greedy, Carolyn. It's to a good cause.
You're right. You're right. Okay,
It's
I
going to
repent. I
fund your
repent.
network.
I repent. We're all volunteers. So
That's
this-
right. It helps fund our salary. Wait, we don't get one.
Exactly.
Well, I am super excited, you guys, for today's episode, because as we close out the year of 2020, we are determined to end the year on a positive note. And I'm saying that as somebody who not only went through the 2020 craziness like you guys all did, but living here in SoCal, where I do kind of on the edge of the hills. On top of all the other craziness, we just went through 2 fire evacuations.
oh,
It's like, will this year ever end? So I'm super excited about our topic, how we're going to end the year on a positive note, looking at silver linings. So what we're going to do is look at 3 different areas: your personal life, kind of your church life situation, and then how your experience with the network. And we're going to look at what are the silver linings that you've seen in 2020, and how can we apply that to all of our listeners and to us as we go into 2021. So buckle your seatbelts, you guys. Get ready. Steve, we're going to start with you. And right now, the question is, Steve, when it comes to your personal life as a human being,
As opposed to being a droid.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna-
what is your silver lining for 2020, and how is this transferable to everybody listening?
I'm assuming you're meaning the personal side, since you said human. But I appreciate you calling me a human. That's nice. I've had other people call me other things. But when I think all of us we've been so stressed, and so many things that this pandemic has done throughout all the other pieces of what 2020 has offered. Derek mentioned fires and politicalness and racial tensions and all that. But when I look in the personal side, I think there's a couple of things that came out for me. One was just better quiet time. I went from being a Sunday through Thursday, or back half of Saturday, front half of Sunday, because we have services on Saturday night and Sunday, and then getting Monday through Thursday working, and so but moving to Monday through Friday. Because our services, our physical temple courts is shut down, everything else is wide open with what we're doing at Saddleback. But it really forced me to get into a better Sabbath time, which I'm so appreciative to. And then obviously rolling out of that Sabbath time has been, just better priorities. It's just, it's hard to explain, but it's just been one of those things where my personal time with God has just been, it was just such a reset for how my week rolled out, that it just forced me in a great way to be tied in with the Lord just a lot better.
So good. Thanks for sharing, Steve. Carolyn, what about you? When it comes to you personally, what's your silver lining for 2020, your top one, and how is it transferable to everybody listening?
Yeah, the thing that comes to mind for me is, as a mother of 2 college-age students, that my kids were so busy in high school that we were just coming and going a lot. And then when everything got shut down in March, and one of my daughters goes to school in the Boston area, so they came home and we had 3 months together, and we had not had 3 months together since they were in middle school probably, and it was such a gift. We not only just had fun together, but we had some really deeper conversations they're now young women. They're no longer high school students. And I got to see kind of what God's been doing in their life, where they're making choices I don't particularly love, but some choices that I'm really thankful for. But just kind of getting to know them as human beings was actually really good, and kind of shifting that relationship. And I think if we didn't have such a concentrated amount of time together, where the world was just so outside of our home, it was just kind of going in chaos, that it just really gave us a lot more time. I don't think we've had so many meals as a family in years. And so I just really relish that. And I think for application wise, it's helped me this year to be more fully present with people. And I know we say that, we try to do that, but kind of like the Sabbath thing that Steve was talking about, I think I'm typically running around too fast, and think of the next thing I'm going to say, the next person I'm going to meet, the next phone call, the next task, and having so much of my job stuff, kind of some of that stripped away, even the interaction in the office didn't exist, and just a lot of that really kind of distilled it to focusing on the person in front of me, whether it was my children, my husband, the small group leader on the call, whatever it was. And I want to keep that discipline, that focus of wherever I am. I want to be fully present there for whatever God has in that moment for us. And that really, I got to practice a lot of that with my kids. And so that was a huge blessing.
Thanks so much for sharing, Carolyn. Bill, what about you?
Boy, I could echo what Carolyn just said. I have 2 college-age girls and never expected at this season of life to have them home.
Mm-hmm.
And they never expected at this season of life
Yes.
to be home. So the silver lining to me might not be the one that they would choose. But so as not to repeat what Carolyn just said, because I could echo all that, I'd add a goal of mine is always every year is to read a book a week. And this was the year that I was able to do past that as a goal, because the pace of life and ministry was such that a lot of the things I couldn't do that I normally do, which gave me freedom and permission to just sort of dig deep. So I not only chose to pursue that, but also chose a lot more complicated or complex books, dead authors, classics, dug into St. Augustine and G.K. Chesterton, and some of those that aren't the lightest reads, but boy, they're rich. And for me personally, it was refreshing to read outside of an election year, outside of a pandemic, to actually read something that had more of a timeless feel and realize that the themes were very consistent between what was written in the 4th century and in the 21st century. That if you follow Christ and love him, the challenges stay much the same through the years. That just certain technologies change, but otherwise people have not changed all that much, if at all. So it was really refreshing and encouraging to dive deep and feel like I was feeding my soul. I feel like it was good foundation level work and allowing me to anticipate 2021 with a different kind of perspective.
Thanks for sharing, Bill. And last but not least, Nick, what is your personal silver lining for 2020?
Yeah, I think mine took a little bit longer to learn in this, but when this news came about in March, there was a lot of, all right, we're in this for a couple weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month, maybe so forth, and it just kept going and kept going and kept going. But along with that, I think I learned character development because of it, in that we have very little control of our environments and what we can control. And so my attitude back in March and April was like, okay, I'll start taking care of these habits once things are back to normal, and just continuing to put that off. And I think that, character development is recognizing that you're in control of yourself, and that if you're constantly waiting for your environments to be right, it's never going to be the right time. And so starting to put those things in practice when things are difficult is way better than waiting for that perfect environment to finally arrive.
I love that quote, Nick, that character development is learning that you're in control of yourself. That was rich. Well, thanks, guys, for sharing that. And let's go to our second question. And Carolyn, we're going to start with you. Similar question, a little bit different twist. When it comes to your church and you as a ministry leader, what is your silver lining for 2020, and how is it transferable for us in 2021?
Yeah, I think both for the small groups ministry and for the church as a whole, we have been kind of, let's say, the priority of online was low. I did not have any online small groups till this year, till the pandemic forced it on me. I had tried it a couple times, at different times, and it just did not go. And I had really resisted putting our groups online for connection, for people to just choose and not have an intermediary. And there's lots of reasons for that, but I had resisted that as well, and that also started. And so these were new discoveries. And then on the church side too, we'd always had live streaming, but gave it zero attention. Basically, just popped up a camera. We didn't have live chat. We didn't have the studio quality that we would want. I mean, it was really a very much a just a kind of passing by thought. And because of the pandemic, we started resourcing it heavily. And so now our live services are so much better and they're so much more engaging. All the lessons learning about how to talk to the camera, how to do different things, the live chat hosting, realizing that's another way to connect with people in a meaningful way. So all of that. And then on the small group side, similarly, using the tool of having people just sign up for groups online really helped set that process free. So I think we're always going to have both. So in 2021, I mean, the reality is, God willing, a vaccine comes quickly and we end up back on campus. But I think people's habits have changed and it is not going to look anything like the beginning of 2019. I think we just can accept that is not how it's going to be. However, it will always be a hybrid. And now to recognize that there will always be people that are going to be engaging through online mediums, and our online small groups are here to stay. We'll always have that as a hybrid. We'll always have connection, both physical and online. So I think those learnings were necessary and probably should have adopted them sooner. But, necessity is the mother of invention. So we adopted them now, and it's been really helpful, and we'll definitely keep those going.
Well said, Carolyn. Thank you. So let's go next with Bill, Nick, and then Steve. And so I'll share the question one more time. When it comes to your church and you as a ministry leader, what is your silver lining for 2020 and how is it transferable to all of us going into 2021? Bill, Nick, and then Steve.
For me, it gave me a chance to really dive deep and build a relational foundation with my leaders. We had nothing but time, especially in the early days of the pandemic, but even now. And in the past, I would have preferred face-to-face over lunch or a cup of coffee or something like that. But now it's over Zoom, it's over a phone call, and that's good. That's actually a blessing to know that we do have a technology. I kind of look back at 1919 and the last pandemic 100 years ago, and they didn't have access to the technology that we just consider pretty normative today. So it allowed me, I'm fairly new here at my role in Oklahoma City, been here now almost 3 years, but that's pretty new. And to allow this year to dive deep with leaders, get to know their stories, hear about their families, to engage with them on a regular personal level has been wonderful, because it's told me a lot about this church. It's told me a lot about this community. And actually, I think this is a pastorally rich season, because some of the things that we did before, we can't run programs. If you had big teaching venues other than the main ones on the weekend, those things have dissipated as well. But people still need other people to care about them and to invest in them and to find out what makes them tick and to do what they can to disciple and nurture and shepherd them. And so this has just been a pastorally rich year. And I'm not thankful for the tragedy of the year or the tragedies that families and individuals have experienced, but I'm certainly thankful that in God's redemptive force, his church continues on and people still engage in life on life ministry. And that's just been a wonderful part of ministry this year. We've learned that we don't need some of the programs, and in the process, we've dropped some of the programs too. So I'll stop there and let some of the other guys pick up from here.
Yeah, I think what I really enjoyed, not much to enjoy about this year, but the strategy and process of it, where I think we take for granted before this of how we do things and we don't really take time to stop and think, why are we doing this? What is the purpose? And I think when we had to transition to online, it became more than just, all right, you're just going to take your group, you're going to do the same thing online. And I think those groups that did that and just completely we're just doing the same thing we did in person, but do it online, it hasn't worked. It hasn't connected as well. And so it's forced us to think, all right, why are we gathering? And then what is the best way to get to communicate that through? And what are the things that need to change? And I hope, like, when we get out of this, that doesn't stop as we move forward, that we're constantly thinking in each environment, what's the most engaging way? What is the best way that this person is going to get to know God in this environment?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take a little bit of a different twist. You guys have covered some great things. I mean, one of the blessings at Saddleback, we were a little bit ahead of the bell curve during the pandemic. But we had, our online service has been running since 2003. We've had online groups since 2009. We've been doing online training since 2010. And so it's been one of those things where we've been able to refine it and make it better, get more concise, better tools and stuff like that. I think one of our silver linings has been, I'll just give you one snapshot, because Rick said it so beautifully when we've been doing our services. He goes, our happiest people are the people that are in a small group and they're serving the community. And we're not a place where we had to move from being a gathering place to a mobilizing place. And just to give you context, when we started out and we launched a campaign, a Dreams campaign, and we launched it right at the end of February. First weekend in March was distribution. And literally we got 1 week of distribution and then had to shut down. But in that pre-thing, Rick was doing an acrostic on doors, no shock, but not to go into everything. But the D, on the doors that God could open, the D was, we want to double everything. And so, all of a sudden, then the following week, you get shut into a pandemic. And part of this is, reflecting back on what Bill was saying when he's talking about reading books. I mean, I read a comic book a day, but, not nothing else. But history has taught us God's always in control. And the beautiful thing is that we've been able to mobilize over 20,000 people out of our groups into the field of one particular thing is our food distribution. We have a number of things that we're doing in the community, but the beautiful thing with that, at the time of this airing, we've seen our one-on-one people in our groups in the field that have led, close to 16,000 people to the Lord. That means they're sitting across a car window and praying for some people to receive Christ. Now, and when you look back at the close of this year, and the silver lining for our church was we had a total different strategy on double everything. But when you look back on it, God had a better strategy. And part of that is just to realize, and I think our learning for our groups was it forced them to reset. It made them, like, for a lot of people, you're talking about, you got that big learning with people jumping online. For us, it was the hunger to get back into the field and, do a variety of ministry. So it's that balance of, they want Bible study, but you got to get the other purposes in there too. So it's just been such a great silver lining for our groups just to get that defibrillation and reset. So
was that then a relief to you as a Saddleback staff that you only had to double instead of adding a 0 to the end of it?
Yeah. That's a great point, Nick. And the problem is the rest of OORS indoors, was like we were adding a 0 to everything. So yeah, it was.
Well, thanks everybody for sharing. That's very encouraging. And on to our last big question of today's show. And we're going to go in this order of Bill, Nick, Steve, and Carolyn. Is when it comes to you as a member and a leader of the small group network, what is a silver lining for 2020 that most excites you? And how is this going to be encouraging to everybody in the network in 2021? So we'll go Bill, Nick, Steve, and Carolyn.
Well, for me personally, Steve and I have talked on and off through the years of different ways where I could be involved in the network. And I participate extensively on the small group network, the Facebook group. I love to interact. I love to see people's comments. I've made friendships through that. But through the years, just with the time constraints I have, just trying to figure out a way to give back to the network that's given me so much. This year, I joined this awesome team of podcasters, and that's been just a boatload of fun to learn how this thing goes. So I don't know if that's helpful to anybody else, Derek. I mean, honestly, it might only be helpful to be in me and my mom who listens to this podcast. Maybe the only time people hear my podcast is when I'm with the rest of you guys. But personally, it's also just been refreshing to have others, this fine group right here to forge these friendships more deeply and to serve alongside one another, even though we're spread around the country, to know that we're in this together. And that's part of the neat thing of things like the small group network, is just an opportunity to figure out how can I do my work that God's called me to do in my church, and at the same time help maybe encourage and blow wind in the sails of someone else who's doing this. Maybe they're around the block, maybe they're around the globe. And that to me has been just a real blessing this year. I didn't expect it. And here I am on a podcast. And true story, I'd never heard a podcast until this year. First podcast I heard was Carolyn's. And I was a guest on her podcast through the years, but I just never dialed any of them in. And
so great to know that you were such a faithful listener.
Well, I became one. Now I'm one. And now I realize this is awesome. This is really a great personal encouragement. So anyhow, that, like I said, maybe that's helpful to no one but me, but that's been a silver lining for me this year.
Yeah, that's awesome. For me, it's the embracing online. So I've been in the network since 2013, and one of my previous roles was being a regional leader. And part of being a regional leader is trying to help aid and assist and partner with the huddles that take place. And one of the things that was always a challenging thing with huddles is trying to get people to gather. And that can be challenging because some are volunteers, some are full-time, so some can get away, some can't. And then trying to find the location and drive 45 minutes, or I know in Nebraska, they drive like 3 hours, which is incredible, to go to huddles.
They drive 3 hours to go to Walmart in Nebraska, Nick.
Yeah,
Nebraska. And we love you in Nebraska, by the way.
I was going to say, shout some love out to Nebraska, because we
love Nebraska. Thank you for what you do.
Shout out to Nick in Grand Island, I think is where Nick's from. So anyways, but now that we're online, it makes it so much easier to huddle, to get into huddles. That has been super helpful, and then also really helps those who are volunteering and giving up their time. It makes it much easier for them to drop in and get to know. But those huddles are really, really great to understanding local context, and then just finding another person who thinks like you is so helpful.
Yeah, I just actually came off of our huddle this morning for Ventura and Santa Barbara County in California, and we met for an hour, and we had a couple new people. One was an elder volunteer who just is now starting to tackle small groups at her church, and we had some other people, and we talked about the challenges, and it was so sweet because several people said, hey, me too, basically, right? Like, we are all dealing with it, and one guy said, this is the most encouraging thing I have heard.
Yeah.
All week. So what a joy.
Yeah. And so for everybody listening, if you want to start a huddle, start off the new year strong, start a huddle, go to smallgroupnetwork.com/huddles, and you'll see everything you need. You can literally start one online. We have an interactive map where others can find you. And it's basically a small group for small group point people. Meet a couple times a year virtually or over coffee, and it's just so exciting, like Carolyn just shared, to hear all of the testimonies coming out of these huddles. Steve?
No, I love it. I love what I'm hearing. I think for me, at first I was going to say the courses that we've launched, because once the pandemic had shut down so much of our in-gathering conferences and workshops that we had, we developed courses that people could learn one-on-one. And to echo what Bill was saying, what I loved about Bill saying, hey, this is really where my gift set is. How can I use it? And so then what's how we came up with the podcast piece. But in the Oceania area of our network, it was just something where, they were coming up and just saying, hey, could we do a cohort with this? And I've participated in a lot of different cohorts, and I'm just like going, I went to a selfish side and just said, why didn't I think of that? But it was great that, they partnered together and they launched our first cohort. And so not only do we have the silver lining, normally we just get in our machine of running conferences every month that you can see on the events page or not see because of the pandemic. But what's been great is having the courses launching that can go so deep into so many different pieces of what small group ministry can be in children's and students, adults, different aspects of leadership development, developing interns. So there's so many different things that were there. But then to see the cohorts just spring up, and a lot of the regional leaders all across the globe have been doing them. And so it's just fun as I look to 2021 and I see a cohort that's going to pop up in South Africa and in Seoul, Korea, and in Canada. It's exciting just to see what God's in the move of, because we had to stay in that machine of cranking out in-person things. And you still want to do that, but what a beauty! Because when you're in a cohort face to face, whether it's over Zoom or back when I was doing them, they were physical ones where you were a part of it. But it's just that silver lining. But the great thing is, it didn't come from me. It came from our Oceania area on the globe that said, "Oh, why aren't we doing this?" And it's like, a typical Rickism. It's like, "You're it," and they did it great. And so I said, "Copy all the files, and can we use them?" And we're using that cohort. So it's just what a blessing of the network and people using their gift sets. So just want to make a plug that Bill made too, is that, if you're out there and you're feeling underutilized, here's a great way to bless others.
Well said. And you can go to our course page. We actually have smallgroupnetwork.com/courses, and you'll see the 3 courses we have up live right now. And we've got our Align course. It's how to learning small group ministry essentials. We've got a how to do online small group course. And then we have our newest one, how to do kids small groups.
Ooh.
And we've got several more in the hopper. So bookmark that page and check back for later.
Gosh, we have so much great content that came out of 2019 between the blogging, the courses, and of course the podcast. So my favorite thing is that Bill has joined our podcast team. But it has been such a blast. So
Nick too.
Well, okay, I'm getting to Nick. But so here's what happened, guys. So we went from me doing this solo, and not to feel sorry for me or anything, but I was all on my own after Steve said, "You do this." So that went for about 5-6 years, and then towards the end of 2018 and beginning of 2019, Steve and Derek jumped in, and so then we went from 1 a month to 2 a month. And then Steve was like, "Do more." And I'm like, "No, I have a full-time job. I can only do one." And then we started thinking, who could we invite to have a different perspective? And Nick was my favorite guest as doing with Andrew and doing these book talks. And so that idea kind of came out, and he's so absolutely perfect for that. I love listening to him talk about the different books. And now I don't have to read the books because Nick's reading them for us. And then, of course, if you listen to Bill, I basically said, "Steve, Bill can talk about anything," and I would listen. Yeah. He has always been one of my favorite guests, and he has so much wisdom. And I'm like, he could just talk about out of that. Plus his voice, my goodness, I want his voice. He's got the perfect voice for podcasting. So you didn't know.
I want your voice, so that works out. You want my voice, I want yours.
That'll
Nick
be
Steve's. Derek wants his own.
I mean, as long as you don't do looks, then we're.
We have the perfect voices for radio or for podcasting is really what Steve's trying to say nicely. And then to continue on with, obviously, Steve and Eric, the only downside of this team is that I lost 3 of my favorite guests. I used to have you guys on a regular rotation, and I'm like, oh no, I just see, because I'm not selfish like that. Like Steve, you mentioned, you were selfish. Well, I'm a giver, so I've now given to the network the other 4. And so here's the fruit, though, you guys. The fruit is incredible. By going through 4 shows, we have now 41,000 unique downloads. It's unique listener downloads in 91 countries. And I didn't even know about the 91 countries till this morning. That's crazy. And God is amazing with that. And then we have an all-time high of 188,000, which is kind of now by the end of this is probably going to be close to 200. And so it's been such a blast. And this year, especially, I think, when the pandemic hit and Steve, you did several online groups with Jay, we gave so much input and context that helped people a ton. On, just as people were all scrambling about how to move our groups online, we gave so much practical hands-on stuff through this podcast, which has been really, really great.
Just Carolyn, just echoing that. I mean, if you haven't looked at if you go to the homepage, there's at the top, there's a bar there, not an open bar, but a bar for, COVID resources. And, there's over 50 resources that we have, in smallgroupnetwork.com/COVID. And it's just something that, if you're listening and you're listening to Carolyn even talking about a lot of these things, or what we've all talked about in the silver linings, so many of the resources to help you take your groups to a silver lining are sitting on that page, just waiting to be heard. I think one of the videos that the video team did was eclipsed 150,000 views. So,
yeah, it was simple. How to get on Zoom, how to get your group on Zoom. It was so simple. And it just really met the need. So we try to, on this podcast, really try to figure out where are the pain points and where are the growth points for all of you, our listeners. And we try to provide value in a fun way for you guys. So if you have any topics or any areas that you wish, we would tap into, please feel free to email us directly or on our Facebook page. You can just throw it on there. And all of our guests, big shout out to all of our the guests that we've had on the program. They are amazing, and they just volunteer their time for just a thank you from us.
It hits me that most of the time, all these resources that we just ticked off, almost all of them are either free or just dirt cheap.
Yeah.
And when you think about how much you have to spend out there, even, I hate to say it, but even in church world, there's a lot of times where you have to lay down big money for certain things.
Right.
And this is the beauty of this network, is this is a relationally built network where we share so much. Again, I know that there's some things that we charge for because we have to, because there's the lobby, when we do it in person, actually costs money for things like food and such. But then, it's almost negligible when you add it up. And that's one of the things that's always impressed me before I was part of the small group network, where I was just like a feeder from the small group network. It just amazed me how much.
A leech.
Well, you call me whatever you want to call me. You know what? The suckers fit. So that just I just had to add that. I suppose that's like tooting our own horn, but yet that stuff matters. And a lot of us on this call right here have known Steve for a very, very long time. And one of the things that I love about this guy right here is that Steve gives constant. And whenever there is fees attached to stuff, it's just out of necessity. But it's just really remarkable how much is given away to the kingdom of God through just the collective voice in the community. But big shout out to our brother Steve here for his giving disposition, his giving heart. So don't say anything, Steve, because I know you're humble. You just, it's okay.
I was just going to say, when you see the bills on your credit card, just don't stop it, because I have to keep moving from each one of you to a new credit card that you've.
We're being paid so much. The one thing that would help, just along with what Bill is saying, we do have a ton of free resources, and there's podcasts going back the last 5 years. If you're looking for a topic, I recently just posted about somebody who's looking for a sermon discussion guide question. We have a great interview with Dave Enns on that, who is the expert on that. So if you're thinking of something, use a search engine and find it. And the other piece is, if you like what you're hearing through the Group Talk podcast, then you need to rate us on iTunes, because the rating actually is tied to the how quickly it shows up on people's search engines. So imagine the small group point person in Nebraska, let's just say, who is a volunteer,
beautiful state, by the way.
Which is a beautiful state, who's a volunteer and just is really discouraged, and they type in small group ministry. If we have more ratings, apparently this is how it works. It'll pop up earlier so they can get resource and feel like they're part of a bigger whole, serving the kingdom together. And that's really the heart of the podcast.
and leave a comment when you're giving us that review, and say something funny, snarky, and we'll read it on air. We'll celebrate you.
It's not only about Steve.
It just strikes me. How many countries did you say?
91.
We should make it a goal this year to interview or interact with somebody from each of those countries that we can. I know that some of the countries it's very difficult for them, but that would be a good goal for 2021. I just made that up on the air and made a slight commitment towards that endeavor. So you're welcome.
We're going to change your show title to Bill Traveling the World.
Hey,
Bill on the World.
I've already interviewed a couple from England. So
that's true.
I've done Australia and Canada, so we've done the easy ones. So now we have to go. I can do the Korean one Korean. There
Steve said when the pandemic's over, he's going to take me to Russia with him. So I'm in.
You promised to take me to Korea. Nick, where are you going with Steve?
I've already been to Hong Kong with him, so I think I need to go.
What?
You got to go to Hong Kong?
Yeah, it was awesome.
You're his favorite.
Bonus, Jason Williams.
Bitterness is a deep root, so we'll just move on the show. Close it up.
Well, you guys, this has been a lot of fun, and I just want to thank you each so much for sharing all of your silver linings from 2020. It's been a tough year. We know that for each of us and for all of you listening, but God is good, and we believe 2021 is going to be a great year. So let these silver linings from this year encourage you for next year. And thanks again to everybody for spending part of your day with us. We pray you have an amazing New Year holiday with your families. And until next time, goodbye.
See ya.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Hey, Small Group Network family. Jason Banzoff here, Group Talk producer and Small Group Network creative arts director. We hope you had a Merry Christmas, and we hope you have a Happy New Year and a great start to 2021. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Group Talk United, and thank you so much to Steve, Carolyn, Nick, Bill, and Derek for that great episode. Sorry I couldn't make it, but guess what? I'm here now. Now, before we go, let's talk about something we already talked about earlier, Virtual Lobby 2021. Due to the COVID-19 restrictions in California, this year's annual lobby gathering will be held live online. And the lobby is one of the nation's premier small group training and networking events. This year's event will run from 9 a.m. to noon Pacific Standard Time each day, and will start off with a general session in the first hour, followed by various breakout sessions on every small group hot topic you can think of. Speakers include Steve Gladen from Saddleback, Bill Willits from North Point, Jared Kirkwood from Mariners, and Dave Enns from North Coast, and over 40 breakout session speakers. Get 30% off now by using code SAVECASH. That's SAVECASH. Visit smallgroupnetwork.com/events to register you and your team today. And thank you for listening to Group Talk. We invite you to subscribe to our podcast through iTunes and get new episodes downloaded automatically. Also, if you enjoy this program, please take a few minutes to give us a positive rating on iTunes so that other small group point people can find us more easily. We encourage you to visit our website at smallgroupnetwork.com to access our library of free resources, connect to a huddle with other small group ministry leaders in your area, read our blog articles, or join us on our Facebook group. Don't forget to use the hashtag SGNet when engaging with your social media channels. Thank you for your support.